Hello, good morning. Welcome to your new English lesson. It's 10 o'clock now. I hope you've slept well. And if you're not at work, then we can study English together. Or maybe if you're in the car or something, I think that it can be useful for you to listen to a bit of understandable English. Yes, I've been learning English since I was, I think, 5 years old. And it hasn't been easy. And I didn't have much opportunity to, when I was younger, to talk in English. But then when I started traveling, then I realized how important it is to use a foreign language that you want to learn on everyday basis. So it's like a crucial thing to start using a language and to start talking to native speakers. And sometimes what happens, you cannot understand them. So I guess a lot of you fear that moment when they will speak to somebody and they won't be able to understand that person. It can be even embarrassing sometimes, or maybe you can make a wrong decision or something only because you didn't understand the person you were talking to. So now I want to practice understanding a native speaker with you. So you can understand me because I speak slowly. I separate words, which is not the thing with native speakers. So as you know, they tend to connect the words together and they don't pronounce it clearly like I'm pronouncing right now. So we will compare my pronunciation of a sentence and a native speaker's pronunciation of one sentence, and then we can analyze things and exercise how to understand a native speaker, and of course learn some new grammar rules and some new vocabulary. Okay, I have some material here prepared. So native speaker reading some of my, I can say my sentences. These are not my sentences, but I have been collecting material and sentences in English like for the last 15 years. So I have a big collection of these. Anyway, yes, I will now press play on my phone and then you will be able to see what it is about. Just a sec, okay?
I'll call again later this evening. I'll call again later this evening. They had never known such hard times. They had never known such hard times. She put down the phone. She put down the phone.
Okay, so you heard 3 different sentences. Do you remember all of them? Sometimes my concentration isn't as well as it should be. So she put down the phone was the third one. She put down the phone. So put the phone down, put the phone down. It's like you don't want to talk to that person anymore on the phone, and then you just put the phone down. So she disconnected the phone. I mean, not the phone, the connection with that person. She put the phone down.
You said so yourself. You said so yourself.
You said so yourself. So why are you asking me now about these things? You said so yourself. For example, he said, I don't know, I'm not very good at Italian. And then after a while, I talk to that same person and then I tell him, well, you're not good at Italian. And he says, but why? Why do you think that? I've been studying Italian for a long time. I'm pretty good at it. And then I say, but you said so yourself. These are your words. You said so yourself.
There's somebody lurking behind that bush.
There is somebody lurking behind that bush. So when you listen to some TV shows or YouTube videos or anything in English, first problem that you can encounter would be like you don't understand what he or she said only because they connected some words and you couldn't hear them well. But sometimes the problem is that you simply don't know the word. For example, here in this sentence, there is a word lurk. And lurk means to just hide. For example, here we have a bush. So to hide behind a bush or behind a car or behind a wall or something, and then to look at somebody, for example, secretly. So to lurk. He was lurking behind the bush. Let's check.
There's somebody lurking behind that bush.
There is somebody lurking behind that bush. So we were walking in the park, and then I saw that the bush was moving like in a strange way. It wasn't wind. So there is probably somebody behind that bush lurking, spying on us or something. Okay.
He positioned the camera in the right corner and pointed it at them.
He positioned the camera at the right corner and pointed it, the camera, at them. This sentence is a bit longer, so you have to concentrate really hard if you're not in a high level to hear all the words and to connect them in a sentence. So what did he do? He positioned the camera. So there is a verb here to position something, to put something in a position. So he positioned the camera and he pointed it at them. So to point is to position it, to put it in a position that can face that person. For example, so I'm pointing my phone at you. It means I'm positioning it in front of your eyes, in front of your face, in order for you to see it.
He positioned the camera in the right corner and pointed it at them. How are we going to pay for this?
You see, here, I mean, obviously he said, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for this? So 8 separate words, but they sound like maybe 2 or 3. Listen to it again.
How are we going to pay for this?
How are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for this? So the way to understand all these things and to use them properly is just to practice. So you cannot be good at listening and understanding if you don't practice. So you can practice with me.
What are we going to do there? What are we going to do there?
What are we going to do there? Again, what are we going to do there? What are we going to do there? So some of the parts of the words are not pronounced at all, so you cannot hear them. But you have to guess what it is. Because if you see what, going, so you have to know the grammar rules. Because if it is the verb going, I mean the verb go with ing ending, then it has to be are or am. There has to be a verb to be in front of it. So what are we going to do? Or what are you going to do?
Just ignore all those messages. Just ignore all those messages.
Okay. So just ignore all those messages. This one wasn't that hard. You know the word message, you use it every day, and ignore is probably maybe similar in other languages, the same word that we are using in English and in other languages. So ignore all those messages. Don't bother, don't get upset because somebody is sending you messages. Just ignore them. Turn the blind eye, as they say. So don't pay attention to these things. Ignore them. Don't pay attention to them. Turn the blind eye.
My father and I hardly ever talk to each other.
You see, this is sad because he says, my father and I hardly ever talk to each other. Hardly ever. So, my father and I don't talk to each other. It would be like they quarreled, they argued about something, and now they don't talk to each other. So when they see each other in the street, maybe they ignore each other. They just passed by each other. They don't talk to each other. But here he said, we hardly ever talk to each other. So it would be like once a year, once in a year when they meet, they maybe exchange some words, but they hardly ever talk to each other. So they really, really rarely talk to each other, hardly ever.
My father and I hardly ever talk to each other. The time passes really quickly.
The time passes really quickly, or as I say, the time flies. So it's true. The time passes really quickly, and a year passes really quickly. You don't even notice it, and you turn around and it's like New Year's Eve. So do as many things as you can now, today. Don't wait for something, and don't say, like, don't procrastinate, don't postpone things, don't postpone them for tomorrow or next week or the first in the month. Just if you want to do something, do it today, now.
The time passes really quickly.
Because the time passes really quickly, and then maybe you won't have enough time to do that.
He was trying to look as though he belonged here.
He was trying to look as though he belonged here. So probably one person was maybe in a meeting or on a concert or somewhere where there were a lot of other people, but obviously he was standing out in a way. Maybe he was wearing some strange clothes, or maybe he wasn't just for that place. So he was different from other people who were there. And then he was trying not to look different from other people. So
he was trying to look as though he belonged here.
He was trying to look as though he belonged there. As though.
I like white roses better than red ones.
I like white roses better than red ones. What about you? What color roses do you like? Red or white? I like red roses better than white ones. I'm not a big fan of flowers, so.
I like white roses better than red ones. She bought him a sweater, but he hated the color.
She bought him a sweater, but he hated the color. So she was so kind and nice to him, and she decided to buy him a present, and he was rude. I mean, maybe he wasn't, maybe he accepted the present and pretended that he liked it, but he didn't like that color.
She bought him a sweater, but he hated the color. Tom will paint the fence tomorrow.
Tom will paint the fence tomorrow. So Tom probably has a house, maybe in the village or something, or in the suburbs, and he has a fence around his house, and he needs to paint it because maybe it's old and rusty, so he needs to put some paint on it.
Tom will paint the fence tomorrow. She rejected my proposal.
She rejected my proposal. So when somebody proposes something, you can accept the proposal or reject the proposal or not react to the proposal.
Rejected my proposal. Please address him directly. Please
address him directly. So address somebody, it means talk to somebody. So here we use the word address as a verb. So what's your address? Address here is a noun, but we can use it as a verb as well. So don't address me like that, and please address him directly.
Address him directly. In spite of the rain, I went out.
In spite of the rain, I went out. In spite of the rain, I went out. So in spite of, maybe despite the rain. When you use despite, then you don't use the preposition of. So you say despite the rain, or in spite of the rain, I went out.
In spite of the rain, I went out.
Went out.
You have always been a bad liar.
You have always been a bad liar, so don't lie to me. I always know when you're lying. I can read it, see it on your face, because you have always been a bad liar. We have a nice usage of present perfect tense here when you want to say, when you use always in present perfect tense. So it means that something has always been true. It was true in the past and it is true now, so it has always been true. So you have always been a bad liar.
You have always been a bad liar. She confessed to having lied to me in the past.
She confessed to having lied to me in the past. So she said, okay, I lied to you in the past. What did she do? She confessed to me to having lied in the past.
She confessed to having lied to me in the past.
She confessed to having lied to me in the past.
Why is it better to advance slowly step by step when learning a foreign language rather than rush forward too quickly?
Oh, so it's about learning languages. So, is it better to rush forward quickly or to advance slowly, step by step? So I guess it's better to advance slowly. Slowly and steady wins the race. So when you advance slowly and steady, learn every day, step by step, then you will advance. But if you rush forward quickly and if you want to learn everything like in a month or two, then you will just be burned out. You will just be desperate at the end, saying, oh no, it's impossible, I'm not talented, or I can't do it. So don't rush forward quickly.
Why is it better to advance slowly step by step when learning a foreign language rather than rush forward too quickly? He doesn't have necessary skills. He doesn't have necessary skills.
He doesn't have necessary skills. So why isn't he eligible for this job? Why isn't he good for this job? Well, he doesn't have necessary skills. I'm not saying that he's not skillful at some other things, but he doesn't have necessary skills for this job.
I hit the ball so hard it went over the fence.
I hit the ball so hard that he went over the fence. We've mentioned this word fence. And what did he do? He hit the ball so hard. So this verb hit, it's the same in present. I hit the ball every day. I hit the ball yesterday. So you don't notice that there is a difference. You have to say to every day or yesterday in order, to know, is it happening in the present or in the past. But when the third person singular is in the sentence, then you will see the difference, because you will say he hits the ball hard every time when we play, or he hit the ball hard, then it will be in the past. This is similar to verb put or cost. So I put jam on butter every day. I put jam on butter, jam on toast yesterday. Or it cost $10 in the past. It costs $10 in the present. So be careful when you learn these words: hit, put, cost.
I hit the ball so hard it went over the fence. They abandoned the sinking ship.
They abandoned the sinking ship. So if the ship or boat is sinking, it means it's going underwater and there is nothing you can do to prevent it from going underwater. You have to abandon that ship as soon as possible if you don't want to drown.
They abandoned the sinking ship. I'm frightened that he'll come back.
What did he say? Is he frightened? Yes. I'm frightened that he will come back. So maybe he has an enemy or a person that he is afraid of, and that person went away, but now he is frightened, he is afraid, he is scared that that person can come back.
I'm frightened that he'll come back.
That he'll come back. And you can hardly hear this, he'll come back. You can only hear, I'm frightened that he come back. But you have to guess that he cannot say he come back. It's irregular, grammatically irregular to say he come back. He comes, he's coming. Okay, but he come? No. So there has to be something between he and come. In this case, it's will. He'll come back. He will come back.
He was frightened and turned pale.
And he was frightened that he'll come back, and he was frightened and he turned pale. So pale, it means when there is no blood in your cheeks, in your face, so you look white as a wall. So he turned pale. He suddenly became pale. So he didn't blush. When you blush, then you're not pale, you're red in your face. And when you turn pale, then you're white. Usually when you're scared.
Frightened and turned pale.
Or sick.
They stood in silence. They stood in silence.
They study? They study in silence? No, they stood in silence. They stood in silence. So to stand, not to sit down, but to stand. And in past tense, we use the form of the verb stood. So how did they stand? How did they stand? They stood in silence. They didn't talk to each other.
On seeing him, the two men stopped shooting and ran away.
On seeing him, the two men stopped shooting and ran away, or something. So on seeing him, it's a nice phrase. So you can say when they saw him. So when they saw him equals on seeing him. What did they do? They stopped shooting. So they had been shooting before and then they stopped shooting and they ran away.
On seeing him, the two men stopped shooting and ran away. We were
ran away, be careful, run away, past simple, ran away.
Shocked by their unexpected appearance. We were shocked by their unexpected appearance.
We were shocked by their unexpected appearance. So somebody showed up, somebody came, somebody appeared somewhere, for example, the party, and they were not invited. So the others were shocked. So why were you shocked? We were shocked by their unexpected appearance, or we were shocked because they appeared unexpectedly. We didn't expect them to come. They were not invited.
The stains will vanish if you use this detergent.
This one is a practical one. The stains will vanish if you use this detergent. So to vanish, it means to disappear. A stain is something that you can have on your clothes if you eat something like mayo or ketchup, and then it falls down on your shirt and it leaves a stain. So if you want that stain to disappear, to vanish, you have to use something, usually not only water, but sometimes a detergent. So
the stains will vanish if you use this detergent. Last night's worries had completely disappeared. Last night's worries had completely disappeared.
So last night's worries have completely disappeared. It happens sometimes when you're so worried about something and then you just go to bed, fall asleep, and when you wake up in the morning, you realize that these worries were not like real worries and that you shouldn't be worried so much. So sometimes last night's worries disappear in the morning, like in his case. vanish.
He was looking forward to the day ahead.
He was looking forward to the day ahead. So he woke up early in the morning, and then he had a day ahead of him. So the whole day was in front of him, and he was looking forward to it. So he wasn't scared of the day ahead. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't sad, but he was looking forward to it. He was happy because something nice probably will happen that day. So he was looking forward to a day ahead.
He was looking forward to the day ahead.
The day ahead.
The wound only bled a little.
This one is about bleeding and the wound. So if you're wounded, you have something, usually an open thing on your skin, and it can bleed. So the blood can come out of it. Or in this case, just a little bit of blood came out of it.
The wound only bled a little. If you are used to something, you have often done or experienced it, it isn't strange for you. If you
are used to something. So this is an explanation of the expression used to. So if I say I'm used to it, it means that I have already done that. It's not unfamiliar. It's not strange for me to do it again. For example, I'm used to cooking. Unfortunately, I've been cooking for like 15 years now. I mean, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but yes, I have been cooking for many years now. And now cooking isn't strange for me. It's not unfamiliar. So when I'm in the kitchen, I just take some things, ingredients, and start cooking. I'm used to doing it.
Are used to something, you have often done or experienced it. It is.
I have often done it. I have often experienced it.
It's strange for you.
It's not strange. It's not unfamiliar.
He may be good looking, but I think he is deceiving you.
He may be good looking, but I think he is deceiving you. So be careful here when you hear he may be good looking. So the first thing that occurs to you is like the verb maybe, but it's not. It's two words. He may or might, and then the verb be, the infinitive of the form be. So it's like he can be good looking, he must be good looking, he may be good looking, he might be good looking, but don't be deceived by his good looks. Maybe he's deceiving you. To deceive, it's like to cheat on somebody. So maybe he's not telling you the truth. Maybe he's lying to you. Maybe he's deceiving you. So be careful.
He may be good looking, but I think he is deceiving you. I want to apologize for my behavior yesterday.
I want to apologize for my behavior yesterday. And instead of saying I want to apologize, you just say I want to apologize. I want to apologize. I want to apologize. For what? For my behavior yesterday. So I was behaving rather, I don't know, strangely, rude, or I did something that embarrassed you, or I did something that you didn't like. And now when I got up this morning, I realized that it wasn't right. So I just want to apologize.
I want to apologize for my behavior yesterday. The boss came late to the meeting, and he didn't even apologize for making everyone wait for half an hour.
So the boss came late. He didn't even apologize for making others wait for him. So if you come late to the meeting, so other people came on time, so you make these other people wait for you. So he made me wait for him. He made us wait for him. So we were just sitting there and we had to sit there. He made us do that because he was late. And then he didn't even apologize because he's the boss.
The boss came late to the meeting, and he didn't even apologize for making everyone wait for half an hour.
So he didn't apologize for making Everybody wait for him.
She thinks about him all the time. She thinks about him all the time.
Didn't you understand this one? She thinks about him all the time. She thinks about him all the time. Who does she think about?
I handed him a copy of the document the lawyer had prepared.
I handed him the copy of the document the lawyer had prepared, had already prepared. So to hand something to somebody, I mean, hand is this, but the verb hand, it means to give somebody something. So I take my phone and I'm handing it to you. So I handed, past simple, I handed him the documents that the lawyer had already prepared. So here in the second part of the sentence, we use past perfect tense because the lawyer had already prepared before that some documents, some papers, and then I handed them to him.
I handed him a copy of the document the lawyer had prepared. She warned him not to go out at night alone.
She warned him not to go out alone. So she warned him. I'm warning you, don't do that. So I'm telling you not to do that. And warn, it's like I'm telling you not to do that because I know that something bad can happen. So it's a warning.
She warned him not to go out at night alone. Dad warned us not to go near the river.
Dad warned us not to go near the river. So what did he say to his children? Don't go near the river. Don't do that. It's dangerous. Don't do that. I'm warning you.
Dad warned us not to go near the river. A fly is a small insect with one pair of wings.
A fly is a small insect with one pair of wings. Wings are the things that help birds and flies and other insects fly. So you have to have wings if you want to fly. And a fly has wings, and it's a small insect, and it can be really annoying, especially when you're trying to fall asleep, for example, and there is a fly in your room buzzing around your nose and your ears, and you just want to get rid of it.
A fly is a small insect with one pair of wings. An island is land with water all round it.
What is an island? This is a good practice when you want to practice English. The good practice is to take an object, for example, a cup, and then to try to explain in English what a cup is without using a word in your native language. So somebody asks, what does cup mean, or mug? And then you'll have to say, like, it's an object that you can pour water, coffee, or tea in, and then the object that you use for drinking, you know. So here, what word was he explaining? An island. He was explaining what an island is. So he just said maybe that it was a piece of land that is surrounded by water. Oh, we will see what he said.
An island is land with water all round it.
An island is land with water all around it.
He has always treated me well.
You see here, I mean, my ears are trained, and I heard he has always treated me well. But if you're not trained that much, then maybe you will hear he always treated me well. So sometimes we don't hear that LL, he'll go, or present perfect, have. He has always treated me that well. But here we usually use present perfect, I've already said that, with always, when we want to say that something originated in the past and that it's still valid, it's still going on. So he treats me well, he's treating me well, and he treated me well in the past, so I will say he has always treated me well.
He has always treated me well. They played hide and seek all over the house.
They played hide and seek all over the house. My son loves playing hide and seek. So hide, it means to go somewhere where other people cannot hear you, not hear you, see you and hear you. So you just go behind a bush or behind a wall or behind, I don't know, anything that you, a table or a chair. And then that other boy or girl has to seek to find you. So to seek is like to search for you, to look for you. Hide and seek.
They played hide and seek all over the house. If you stay here, you'll hear things you shouldn't.
If you stay here, you'll hear things that you shouldn't. But no, if you stay here with me, you'll hear only things that you should hear. I mean, I won't say anything that you shouldn't hear.
If you stay here, you'll hear things you shouldn't. What happened between him and me is just business.
What happened between him and me is just business. So it's nothing personal. It's not a love affair. We don't have anything in common besides business. So it's strictly professional.
What happened between him and me is just business. She was a child whose movements were filled with confidence and grace.
He was a child whose movements were filled with confidence and grace. So it's nice to have a child whose movements are filled with confidence and grace, elegance.
She was a child whose movements were filled with confidence and grace. He looked utterly ridiculous.
He looked utterly ridiculous. Utterly, completely.
Looked utterly ridiculous. The weather got very cold and it began to snow.
The weather got really cold and it began to snow. So here we have this verb get and then an adjective after it, and we use it very, very often like that. So it's getting cold, it's getting dark, I'm getting old, so I'm starting to be. So the weather got cold. The weather started to be cold.
The weather got very cold and it began to snow. He simply slammed the door on him.
He simply slammed the door on him. It means that that other person was behind the door was open, and then I slammed the door and I leave you on the other side of the door. So he slammed the door on him. He didn't let him in.
He simply slammed the door on him. My dear, you praise me too highly.
My dear, you praise me too highly. So to praise somebody, it means to speak nicely and politely about somebody, to say nice words about somebody. For example, if I say, my son is so clever and he can run very fast, he can play tennis very well, he can speak 3 foreign languages, then I'm praising my son.
Dear,
highly.
You praise me too highly. Why don't we do something more interesting?
Why don't we do something more interesting? For example, we are just learning English, and it can become really boring after a while, or maybe this activity can become boring after a while. And then if it happens, you can say, why don't we do something? But don't be rude. Don't say interesting. Why don't we do something interesting? Then you will imply that these things that you have been doing were boring. But you can just say, why don't we do something more interesting? So the things that we have been doing were interesting enough, but now it's time to do something more interesting.
Why don't we do something more interesting? He demanded higher income.
He demanded higher income. So if you're employed somewhere, and then you get a salary from your boss, from your company, and in one point you just realize that you're working so hard, but that your income, your salary isn't high enough, and then you have to ask your boss, your manager, for a pay rise. So you want to have more money because you're not satisfied with your income.
He demanded higher income.
So you have to just demand higher income. Okay, we can come to the end of our today's lesson. I hope that we will see each other tomorrow again with some new interesting things related to English, to native speakers, to English grammar. And yes, that's it from me today, for this morning. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.